Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to this video. It is April 27th, 2025. My name is Libby Ruttledge, and I will be speaking today about the results I have of measuring the water in Clear Lake, California. I do these measurements by using a method called radionics. It is an instrument, but it's not accepted by mainstream science, and it uses a large intuitive component to these measurements. And I will first describe and show the graphs of the data that I've measured about Clear Lake in the last almost 3 months. And then I will talk some more about what radionics is and how do I do it. Okay, so the first part is the graphs, and I started and I'm doing these measurements as part of a Clearwater Vision. And I came to this group around December, and then I offered to do radionics measurements of the lake. And so the data here it's a lot of busy graphs here. And I will walk you through it and explain what so far that I can perceive from the data. So what I did was I measured negative emotions in the lake, positive emotions in the water, and physical items like potassium concentration. And I have measured in the past emotions in the water for other reasons. And so I have seen that the emotions do react to when energy is sent to them, positive energy is sent to them. So for the Clearwater Lake, there were in the past 3 months or so, there were 3 times that as a group, when we would meet on Zoom, that some positive intentions or healing was sent to the lake. And then when I met in the measurements, then I could see an effect of what happens with the negative emotions and the positive emotions, as well as the physical items. So this first graph is one showing the negative emotions in the water of Clear Lake. So at the beginning, so I started measuring in January 29th, 2025. And I mainly wanted to get a baseline. So this is a very scattered kind of look to it in the measurements. And then the first healing or sending positive energy was done on day 21 here. So that would be around February 20th. And so it's right after this measurement point and before this point here. So you can see that these negative emotions, all of them went down, and they all actually reached 0 at one point. Okay. And you'll probably notice that there is a portion here where the negative emotions actually went up. I'm not sure why that is. There could be a lot of guesses, but we definitely see from the position where they were that the negative emotions went down. And then the second peak or dip that happened was after we did the Clearwater Vision Group meeting on Zoom, did another healing session on day 28. So about a month after I started measuring, so the end of February. And all of the negative emotions went down to 0. So in both cases, they went down to 0, but then they went back up to some other value a day or two afterwards. So after this one, they all of them went back up to some degree. And then another interesting thing that was curious was at the time of the eclipse on March 29th, and that was at day 58 of the measurements. Now, the negative emotions between this time, it was day 46 here and day about 61 here. So I don't know I don't have more detail about what went on here, but we do see that they went down. The negative emotions went down. Could this be from the eclipse? I actually think so, but I'll say more about that when we look at the positive emotions. And then a few days ago, um, I did another measurement that day 79, 70, 76, 76 here. Day 77 earlier in the day, the Zoom meeting group did another healing and sending good energy. It was a tapping method that Verushka does. And then the following day, day 78, I measured and the negative emotions went down. Almost all of the emotions went down. One of the emotions stayed even at the same level, and another of the emotions, this one, the green, which if you could see, the green here is energetic toxins, went up by 1 point. So everything else went down. And to show you the negative emotions and other negative things that I was measuring are here. There's 16 different items. One is negative contracts, one is energetic toxins. Then we have anger, frustration, hatred and grudge, revenge, resentment, sadness, grief, indifference, pain, rape, service to self, greed, and fear. And these emotions are not put into the category of negative emotions just to be judgmental about the emotions. It's just for ease of graphing because there's so much data. And we want to see the patterns where these similar types of emotions go, the patterns that they show. Okay, so that is the negative emotions. And then the positive emotions, there are 9 in this group, which includes the life force energy, which means like chi or prana, your life force, a life force. I think everything has a consciousness and a life force. So I am measured the life force. And that is this a thick purple line is the life force. It's actually a different scale than the rest of the items. And then there's love, harmony, gratitude, joy, freedom, clarity, hope, and appreciation. And also notice here that the scale is different. This is a logarithmic scale. And this means that for each line here, it is 100 times more than the line before it. And also in these graphs, the radionics measurements, this instrument doesn't measure in any kind of units. There are no units to it, and I'll explain that a little bit more when I talk about the radionics instrument. For the positive emotions, the life force energy, each time there was a healing, day 21, the life force energy went way up. Day 28, it went up even more. And then here, between a day 46 and 61, there wasn't a measurement in between, but in that time there was the eclipse on March 29th, which was day 58. So possibly this really high number, which is way off the scale, was the reason for that peak. And the number I got for this life force energy is 1 times 10 to the 3,433,333. Okay, that's a lot. What does that mean? It's just a lot. And the previous maximum was 10 to the 12th here at this point. So this number here was very, very high. In fact, I calculated based on the scale of this graph that to plot this, this number would be 25 miles up into the sky, 27 miles up into the sky. So that's a lot. And what in the world would cause an increase that much? Well, so there was the question, was it due to the eclipse? And what I am seeing by my intuition is that it is, but it's indirect. So what I believe is that the eclipse actually affected humans in a positive way. It was good. And the humans then affected the lake, the energy in the lake, the life force energy of the lake. Perhaps it's more than humans that affected the lake. Everyone, every being, every animal was receiving this energy, so maybe they also contributed to the energy going up in the lake as well. And then the last healing that was sent, it had a small increase in the life force energy. So I guess I should point out that since that time of the eclipse, the energy went way down, in fact, quite low, lower than it was when I started measuring in January, at the end of January. So it was low, and unclear why it was low, but it did go up somewhat, which is quite a bit increase since this is a logarithmic scale. That's just the life force energy. But as for the other emotions, they had a smaller peak on day 21 and large peaks on day 20 after the healing on day 28. So you can see that all of the positive emotions increased after a healing was made. And then at this point, some of the positive emotions went up, but it wasn't, it was a little bit. So this was a healing done by the tapping method that Verushka does. And so there was some increase in the positive emotions. Okay, and then the physical items measured in the lake are shown here. And this is not a logarithmic scale here. And the physical items, there's a lot of physical items here, from fluorine, chlorine to polyfluoro, I forgot, acetyl sulfate, basically plastics, as well as mercury, methyl mercury, radiation, conductivity, resistance, salt level, pH, calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium, CODMN. This is a measurement of oxygen. It's a chemical test that is used to measure oxygen demand, nitrogen, phosphorus, biophotonic force, light quality, and cinnabar. Okay. Cinnabar was added later, so I didn't start measuring that until about this point, day 29 or so. So the physical measurements are a little harder to understand because even though I defined the measurement to contain, say, to measure like potassium in certain concentrations like milligrams per liter, I don't think is what I am seeing. I think what I'm seeing is how much of an issue the number is, rather than a distinct concentration. But it's not completely clear. But I was decided to measure these things to see what we could gain from it. Would it measure the concentration or do something else? So that's why uh, I was measuring this to see what we get. And you can see the background here is a lot of scatter, but what's kind of curious, after the healing on day 21 and days 28, a lot of these physical measurements went down, some to zero. So that's another reason why I think that that's not measuring actual concentration. But it's not clear. And then in the last one on day 77 and 78, some of the things, a lot of the items went down, and a couple went up. Looks like a couple went up. So not totally clear what this means yet, but I just keep looking at the data and see what I can gain from it. Another thing that was measured is the algae in the lake. And all of these measurements used the lake as an average in the water. Even though the algae may be in just only one portion of the lake, but it still just took the measurements as just the overall average. And so what I measured was the total amount of algae. Apparently, there is a measurement that measures algae in terms of length. And that is the thick blue line, is the total length of the algae. It's only like millimeters or so. And then there were 4 variants. So I gather these have different variants of the toxin that is produced by the algae. And this was meant to measure the percentage of the total amount. So this percentage of all the 4 variants should add up to 100%, or on my knobs it would be 10. But they don't really add up that way. And you can see there's a lot of variance in the measurements for the percentage of the algae. So again, it's not clear how to interpret this. And a big question is, how does this relate to the real world measurements of these things? But for the algae, I don't know yet. We don't have measurements of that. And so that's a summary of some of the data. What I actually measured was the values in the water, and that's what I showed you. But I also measured the values within half a mile around the lake, in the land, half a mile around the lake, and also the values 20 feet above the lake in the air. And those seem to have similar values, though I have not graphed those yet. Okay, so now I'd like to talk a little bit about what radionics is, and how I do it. It's mainly an intuitive technique, but there is an instrument which seems to sort of amplify the effect of the intuition. So the real instrument sometimes is considered to be the operator, or the person doing the measurements. It works on scalar energy, so not electromagnetic waves or Hertzian waves. You can measure in frequencies in hertz, but scalar energy, which just has no units. And scalar energy would be the type of energy that, as I understand it, that someone does hands-on healing, they are doing healing through scalar energy, which is not dependent on time and space, so it can be sent anywhere instantly, even across the galaxy or the universe. Ed Kelly described scalar energy in the radionics. How it works is that the radionics instrument has an antenna which receives electromagnetic waves, but that antenna subtracts the electrical component and the 90-degree from that, the magnetic component, which is most of what we think of as an electromagnetic wave, but it subtracts those things, and what is left is scalar energy. So I don't understand a lot about scalar energy. A lot of people have different definitions of it. So it's in my view, not easy to describe very well. So this is my instrument, which was made for me by my teacher in a briefcase. And it has 12 regular knobs, which can be moved in just integers. So they click from one whole value to the next on a scale of 0 to 10. And then the 13th knob is a potentiometer with a smooth moving dial, which is used to set intensity when I'm sending energy or broadcasting. So with radionics, I can either measure something or I can broadcast it outward. And I can broadcast outward to the planet as a whole or the universe, or I can broadcast to someone. I have their picture and I put their picture here on this plate, which is called the witness plate. So if I'm sending energy, I can put the person's picture here and set the dials to the code, or in radionics, they call it a rate. I set the rate with these dials, and then broadcast to a person's picture, and it goes to the live person. The picture doesn't have to be a recent picture. It could be a picture from them as very young, and it still goes to them live now. And this knob, the potentiometer, is used to set the intensity of that broadcast going to the person or outward just to the planet or whatever you designate. So that's a broadcast. In order to measure, what I do is put an item here on this plate of what I want to measure. It could even be something like a 3x5 card with the name of like Clear Lake written on it. And then I use the top row of knobs to the settings of the code or rate of what I want to measure. So in the case for Clear Lake, I had about 50 different items that I measured. And I would measure each one for being in the water, for being on the land, or being in the air. And so, like, to measure the life force energy, I would set the code for the life force energy is 4949. I would set the first dial to 4, the second dial to 9, and then these two dials would remain off. So that's what the top row would be. Then I would use the second row of knobs to measure the quantity of that life force energy. So in this case, the life force energy of the lake is quite high and would require a lot of number of digits. So it measures the leftmost digit first. So this knob would measure the leftmost digit, then this would be the second digit, and then this would be the third digit and the fourth digit. And however many digits it would go on, you could go to the next row of knobs and digit 5, 6, 7, 8. And if I needed more digits, I could even just, with my intention, say, reset these knobs to back to off, and then proceed with digit number 9, 10, 11, and 12. It's amazing. It seems like magic, and it seems like, wow, you can do that. You can do a lot of things. You can with your intention tell each knob what it's supposed to do, what it's supposed to be. So it's quite amazing. So intention is a big part of it. And along with that, the operator has to be in a clear space. They can't be angry or upset or distracted by animals and people and talking and lots of commotion all around. Usually doesn't work too well. Or even as I was taught not to not to do radionics when there's an electrical storm around either. So the codes or rates that that I use, most of them I make up myself. So I have an intention, say I want to measure anger, then I create a number. It's for me, I just pick an arbitrary 4-digit number or up to 4 digits and assign that to anger. And now that intention of anger is connected with that code, and that's what it will be. And there are rates of and books of rates that other groups have, and they publish on their websites for to use. People, it's usually free to use. So lots of practitioners make up their own rates, and every manufactured instrument is different. There are many different types of instruments. This was a custom-made one for me, and it does not use any electricity or any power battery in it. It just has some crystals threaded onto the wires underneath this base plate. But so lots of people make up their own rates, and it's kind of an art form, I think. And so when I do the measurement, then to actually do the measurement, I use this plate. So I set the knobs to what I want to measure, say 4-9 for the life force energy in the top row. And I would measure with this second row, the left knob of the second row. But in doing that, with my right hand, I would hold 2 fingers on this plate. This is the touch plate or the stick plate. And to do that, the stick plate, with the 2 fingers, I just move my fingers in a circular motion evenly, sort of slowly, just a constant motion. At the same time, with the other hand, I am turning this knob to each position, to the next position, and while I'm still moving my fingers on the stick plate. And if I turn this knob, and then I turn it at each click gradually until I get a stick. And by that is meant that my fingers will actually stick to the surface and won't slide anymore across this plate. And what is presumably happening is that there's a resonance that the operator would feel. Hopefully, I never mastered this stick, so I'll tell you my workaround in a little bit. But when it gets to the number that this is, there's a resonance, and there's apparently extra moisture on the tips of your fingers, which would cause your fingers to be sticky on the plate. So your fingers will stick. And so you have to get the right tension, the right speed, the right sensitivity and awareness to do it. And when I was learning this, I could not do this, and I was even in tears because I was so frustrated. But I found that instead of doing that, I could use what is called muscle testing or applied kinesiology to while I'm standing here turning the knobs, I have my fingers just static on the plate, not moving. And then I would muscle test with my body, a yes or a no. So each position I would ask, is this correct? And again, a no in the muscle testing. Turn it to the next position. Is this correct? No. And keep turning it until I get a yes by my muscle testing. And people also use a pendulum above the stick plate, and that works too. So there are other ways to do it. One thing I want to say about the measurements is that this is not a precision instrument as you might think of as scientific instruments. This is not accepted by mainstream science. Um, and as you can imagine, if it relies on intuition. And the measurements I would consider to be more like ballpark measurements. So I don't scrutinize an individual number too much. But as a whole, if you see, like with the emotions, all of those emotions going either down or up, well, then in my mind, that does say something. And when it's repeated, it's even stronger. It's something is happening. In the past, I measured the energy, the life force energy of some symbols on 3 different days, the same symbols written on 3x5 cards, and to see what kind of accuracy it was from day to day. And it wasn't accurate at all. You could not do a standard deviation and get any kind of quote valid scientific results. But so I consider it a bit of a relative kind of measure. So it is highly useful. I don't know any other way one could measure emotions. And as a matter of fact, you can create anything that you want to measure. It could be spiritual, it could be physical, it could be anything as long as you can put an intention to it, and a code number or a rate number. You can measure it. And you may not even know what the item is. So it's really flexible. It feels magical to me. It's amazing. And I just keep measuring things to see what I can see. So that's what I have here for um, for this presentation of the data so far. And so everyone, thank you for here we go. Thank you for coming and listening. And I am certainly open for questions that anybody might have. I can be reached at my email with mobilednaelements@gmail.com. That's mobilednaelements @gmail.com. And you can contact Clearwater Vision as well. So again, thank you for coming.